Here's something else I found that irks me. There is no account system in this game. You use transfer codes instead. You basically have to issue one, then use it whenever transferring your account information to another device. So in short, there is no crossplay available. You can't seamlessly play on your phone and then a tablet without issuing a code first. This is 2024. I don't understand why we're still using transfer codes. I don't know what it is about these Japanese gacha games that they still do this, because it honestly just makes for a poor player experience. If that wasn't enough, here's one more. You would expect that if the development team is announcing the end of service of a game months in advance, what they usually do is disabling the in-app purchases, since it doesn't make too much sense to let people buy stuff where they just can't use the product. Not here though. I'm recording this about a week away from termination, except the cash shop is still open, and it will actually try to charge me if I bought something. This is pretty slimy. And oh, a cherry on top, if you buy the $1 paid gems pack, you're actually just short of being able to afford one paid gems pull. Yikes. Okay, let's start with the analysis portion. What might have caused the development team to cut their losses so soon? From any perspective, it just doesn't make too much sense to make a post like this. Given the nature, it also doesn't make sense to enable app purchases if the game is just going to be put under in 4 months. Why even let customers waste their money on something that can't be used anymore? Is it because of money? Well, yeah, actually, I think that's it. Now, I know my audience in rhythm games probably have very little overlap, but the scene for these mobile rhythm games is actually pretty competitive. Not to mention that Love Life is not the only one tapping into the theme of idols. There is D4DJ, which is where this meme came from, Bandori, and even Male this meme came from. There is D4DJ, which is where this meme came from, Bandori, and even male-oriented idol-themed ones like Ensemble Stars. You could probably make an entire video diving into this topic, but in a world where the cultural significance of all these games have already taken root, it's pretty difficult to get a foothold if you're not doing something too different to stand out. Something I do want to point out is that the original Love Live gacha game did have a runtime of almost a decade, which is pretty impressive. Most gachas don't last that long before end of service. It's still a bit in the clouds as to why they decided to shut down the first game and launching a second version, as there actually just wasn't that many improvements upon the first. Mainly just quality of life improvements and optimizations here and there. The financials for the game must not have looked good, since looking back on December 2023's Sensor Tower revenue reports, Love Live didn't even register in the charts. Earlier that year, a global version for Love Live 2 was announced, except in December, they said that the release window will be delayed until February of 2024. It certainly didn't bode well for global players when the Japanese version announced in January that it will be terminating by the end of March. People were now pretty skeptical that a global version will be releasing at all. But what do you know? Because here is that faded tweet. People speculated that since they would have already paid a localization team to port it to the global market, they might as well spend some extra real estate to keep the service running for a few months to recuperate their losses. But again, this whole thing just screams cash grab to me. Any reputable gacha development team wouldn't keep the cash shop open after the game's termination is announced. Well, they really knocked it out of the park this time. Anyways, I wanted to cover this story as this announcement is honestly one of the most hilarious ones I've seen. I can't exactly say I feel bad for the development team, but hey, it just goes to show how bizarre the gacha industry can be sometimes. And in my opinion, marks this game as the greediest cash grab of 2024 so far. I hope you enjoyed the second volume of the series known as End of Service, that I totally did not try to sell off as clickbait. The next game on my radar isn't going to be until July, but just in case if you're curious, the game in question is called World Flipper. It is a pinball gacha game with its global release terminating this summer. So if you want to see what it's all about, then you better get on it. Alright, that's it for today's video. The gacha game industry has had its fair share of massively popular hits, but at the same time, while you hear about the glamorous successes of these giants, you never hear about the ones that were, not so successful. I went on the journey to find just how atrociously bad some of these gachas are, and listed a couple that shut down extremely shortly after its launch. I found some that never reached the first anniversary, some that never reached the 6-month mark, but among them, I found an extremely interesting case. What if I told you that the gacha game we will talk about in this video, due to glaring issues with its launch relating to bugs and optimization, was shut down indefinitely in just 6 hours from the time of release? Join me today as we explore one of the most intriguing outliers in gacha game development, and explain why this one innocent title from an indie studio had its life cut extremely short. Let's start from the beginning. It's only fair that we introduce the players to the stage first. The name of the short-lived gacha game is called Immortals Muv-Luv Alternative. I know 90% of you are thinking, what in hell is a Muv-Luv? Well, sit down, because we'll be here for a while. Muv-Luv is a trilogy of visual novels released in the 2000s that capitalized on the craze on dating sims and the mecha genre for its time. The full story is split into 3 different titles: Muv-Luv Extra, Muv-Luv Unlimited, and Muv-Luv Alternative. Each are direct sequels to the previous, and while you might just dismiss this as another cash grab of its era, Muv-Luv Alternative up until 2023 was the highest rated visual novel of all time according to VNDB, the largest database for visual novel media in the West, even toppling all-time classics such as Steins Gate, Clannad, and Fate Stay Night. This title is a big deal to the visual novel community, having received overwhelming praise and slated as a must-read by some fans of the medium. Even Hajime Isayama, the primary manga artist for Attack on Titan, stated to have received a lot of influence from Muv-Luv. What's even more surprising, I read it. The entire trilogy. Back in my college years, I used to have a visual novel craze, reading all the highest rated titles I could find such as Umineko, Kyle's Child, Baldur's Sky, Your Legend if you know these by the way. I had a lot of time on my hands, and Muv-Luv after having seen all the praise, was also one I decided to tackle. I'll be giving a brief overview regarding the trilogy. There will be no major spoilers, and I will only include the details I think will be critically important to know about it in this video. The Muv-Luv trilogy is written by a company named AGE, a Japanese visual novel studio that has had its fair share of works released dating all the way back to 1999, with their works primarily consisting of eroge, which is just a visual novel term for erotic game, or 18+ dating sims. Very standard stuff for its time. Muv-Luv was their crown jewel back in the days. In order to find out what the big deal was with Alternative, we have to start from the first entry in the trilogy, Muv-Luv Extra. Released on February 28, 2003, Extra features the main protagonist, Takeru, a carefree, video game-loving teenage boy attending high school in modern-day Japan. Well, modern in the 2000s at least. His personality is as plain as it gets, very typical from something like a harem anime. He spends time with his childhood friend Sumika, who happens to live next door and can talk to each other from their bedroom windows. They share a close relationship in their daily lives and is heavily implied to be Takeru's primary love interest. That is, until one day out of the blue, he wakes up to find that someone else was in bed with him. It was Meiya, the sole heiress to the Mitsurugi Group, one of the largest corporate conglomerates in the world. Taken aback by this revelation, Takeru had some explaining to do to Sumika. But what on earth was one of the most powerful figures in Japan doing in this random teenage otaku's room? The story of Extra essentially follows Sumika and Meiya as the two main heroines. And alongside the rest of Takeru's harem, we have Chizuru, the diligent class of head, Kei, the quiet tsundere, Miki, the outgoing lolly whose hair can cut fruit, and Mikoto, who is a trap. That is all. The overarching story of Extra is extremely run-of-the-mill. School events, class field trips, club competitions, it's your usual rom-com trope where you dedicate to a character's story arc and learn more about them. It's a lighthearted comedy where wholesome things happen, and that's really it. It's so plain it's scary, almost as if something sinister is about to happen. Before I continue with the Muv-Luv Unlimited, I will be spoiling the ending of it, but will not go into too much detail. This is because I think understanding how Unlimited ends is vital to understanding the context of Alternative, but if you prefer to keep the surprise for yourself, you can skip to the following timestamp to go straight into the overview for the next title, which I will not spoil. The next entry in the trilogy, Muv-Luv Unlimited, will unlock when you clear both Sumika and Meiya's story routes. They are packaged together in one game, which is just named Muv-Luv on Steam. In Unlimited, Takeru wakes up as usual, except to his surprise, nobody came to wake him up, which is how it was in Extra. Opening the door outside, he finds that the world seemingly has been utterly obliterated. His cheerful, romantic high school lifestyle, now in ruins, it's a war-torn wasteland as far as the eye can see. Feeling lost, Takeru runs to where his high school used to be, and unexpectedly gets detained by armed soldiers. He is brought to Yuko, who was a professor in the Extra universe, and was explained that this version of the world that he woke up in has been invaded by an alien species known as the Beta. They have ravaged the planet, and every effort to fight against them have been fruitless. Takeru's high school, now repurposed as a military base, is researching a secret weapon to take the offensive in this losing war, codenamed Alternative 4. Takeru is then assigned to his squad of troopers, unexpectedly consisting of his harem from Extra, except for Sumika. She is nowhere to be seen. This universe's Meiya and others, having no idea who Takeru is, decide to take him under their wing, conduct training sessions, combat practice, and rebuild their bond together as squad mates. This version of Takeru, grossly out of shape, struggles to keep up with his tasks and training, and can't help but feeling that he took his cheerful, worry-free life for granted. Combat against the Beta is primarily done by suiting up in giant mechanized robots called TSFs, or Tactical Surface Fighters, and taking control from within. Having conducted many training sessions in these clunky heavy suits, the gang was just about to battle Betas for real until an announcement came over the speakers one night, requesting all personnel to evacuate. A panicked Takeru scrambles into Professor Yuko's office, demanding an explanation, only to find that she is drunk out of her mind, and can only utter the words that she has failed. Alternative 4 did not succeed. As a contingency plan, the operation known as Alternative 5 has commenced instead. Reluctantly following along,